Hi, my name is Brady Forrest. This is my third time at Montreal Startupfest. I'll be here all week. It's great to be back. I love Montreal in the summer. I'll try to keep this jacket on for as long as possible. It may last only 15 minutes. In San Francisco, I would be shivering right now, but love being back on the East Coast. I actually, just last week, was in Tanzania on safari. So I'm hitting like a bunch of different climates this week. And if you come to Ignite, I will be doing a 5-minute version of what it's like to go to Tanzania with 15 of your best friends. But that is not what this talk is about. This talk is about hiring and basically how startups need to be able to rock at hiring, because investors invest in teams and the founders are only the team for the first couple of months if things go well. So let's everybody stand up. All right. Yeah, you can stretch a little bit, but that's not the point. Okay, so in your life, if you've hired 5 people, stay standing. If you have hired 5 people, stay standing. If you have hired 10 people, stay standing. 15 people. 50. 100. All right. You 4 win. Pick up the prize later. The reality is, as a startup founder, if you are doing a moonshot, you're going to need hundreds of people. And how long do you think you'll be able to be involved in the hiring process? At what number are you still actively involved? Just call it out. How many, if you are a startup founder and you are building your team, at what number do you stop being involved in every hiring decision? 25? I think 100 if you're lucky. 100 if you're lucky. After that, it just becomes too much work and you have to trust your team. Of course, this is discounting senior hires, anyone reporting to you, management. But I know of a 50-person startup. They've raised $70 million. CEO does not get involved in the loop for anybody who is not a manager. He scares them. He doesn't know what the teams need. But he's hired amazing managers who can do all of this. So I work with about 40 different companies through a company called Enjoy the Work. We're a team of 11 advisors. We meet with CEOs on a weekly basis. We help them deal with investors. We help them figure out their goals. Based on their goals, we help them figure out their OKRs. Based on those objectives and key results, we figure out a financial plan. Based on the financial plan of what we can afford and the goals, we then develop a resource plan. We then hire against that, we source, and then we try and act on it. And we work with CEOs on a regular basis around those things and those things pretty much exclusively. Everything else kind of flows out from that because it's all about, can you achieve your goals? This is the framework that we teach to them. The 12 rules to not fuck up startup hiring. So it's a lot more complicated than just 12 rules, but it's nice to just sometimes have things codified. Feel free to throw questions along the way. I'll just answer them. I'll share the slides later as a PDF, and you can also ping me for follow-up on Brady on Twitter. So, first rule is, culture is king. Everything flows out of culture. Culture defines the organization, and it either builds up strong talent and helps the best idea win, or it drives bureaucracy out, and the better people all leave. It's not academic. It's not passive. It's something that you either work on or you don't. How many people in this room are in a serious relationship right now? It could be romantic or a co-founder relationship. Do you work on it? Do you spend time working on the relationship, saying, am I getting out of this what I need? Are you getting out of this what you need? That's culture for your company. It's making sure that everyone in the company is getting what they need so that they stay. And so that as you grow, you are getting the right people for your company. So culture can be broken down into 3 things: core value, mission, and vision. Who are we as a company? Core values. Why do we exist in this world? Vision. How do we do that thing? Mission. That's the reason why we exist. It's those 3 things, and if you have them written down, codified, you have the beginning of culture. At Enjoy the Work, we have our own mission and vision, and we think about that whenever we face a hiring challenge, when we think about bringing on a new client. Does this feel good? Will we actually enjoy the work? Can we be of service to them? And we try to live by that culture because as we expand, we want the people we bring on to be able to live those values too. So when it comes to hiring, culture is the reference set of those hiring guidelines. The codification is mission, vision, and culture. If you want to see a great example of this, Google Netflix core values deck. It's a deck that came out 3 or 4 years ago. I think it's probably like 140 pages. But in there are just some amazing gems of how Netflix has kept their culture of best ideas win, right people stay in the company. The woman who actually wrote that deck and was one of Reed's first hires is no longer with the company. You can actually listen to some lovely podcasts where she talks about the day that they realized she was no longer the right fit. It was a sad day, but she also knew it was coming. Your job as founders is to live those core values. You have to own the vision and act on it and make sure everybody else does. So, one day early in your startup career, someone will walk up to you and say, we need to hire X. We need to hire a senior marketing person. We need to hire an SDR. We need to hire a developer. Never start with the hire. Always start with the goal. Maybe you could just go to a board member for some free advice. Maybe it's a short-term problem and you could rent a consultant. Remembering that you always start with the goal will save you a lot of money. Because hiring is never the goal. So think about what the issue is. We have to have a product launch. Our one engineer can't handle it. Boom. Our product is launched. We don't have numbers. We need a growth person. Okay. So how do you decide if you'll actually hire? One great way is to go through the exercise of actually writing out your job description. So the act of writing a job description will help make sure everyone is aligned in what you need, what the background is, what the attributes are, where they'll fit in the organization. There's an idea that comes out of Salesforce. There's no unordered lists. Any list you have, something is more important than the other. And that has to come out in the job description. So you can decide exactly what is most important for that. The job description needs to be in place and needs to have answers for how this company will be successful. It needs to be how this person could be successful. It needs to show why this company will succeed. If you are trying to hire serious people, they will have serious questions. And those answers, they have a second benefit. They don't just align your company for what you're trying to do and what's next for you. It also serves as an ad. Now that you have this internal job description, you can start posting it out. You can start advertising for it. You can start getting candidates. You have this document that works both internally for alignment and externally as an ad. So we live in an incredibly competitive time. You have to move fast. I live in the Bay Area, and right now, if you are on the job market, it is definitely a seller's market. You have a lot of companies coming after you. If you are a senior developer, anyone with any sort of experience, large companies will pay gobs of money. Startups will pay significantly less money, but they have better dreams, and you need to be able to move fast. Having that job description so that everybody is aligned helps you move fast. Knowing what your culture is, knowing what the order of those lists are, help you move fast. Now, before you get the candidate, there's something for everyone to realize. If you do a Google search on CEO, this is what you find. So for all the guys especially, but everyone, we're all biased. We all have our own inherent biases that we bring into the room. And our job is to try and make sure that we leave those biases at the door. What do you think the best way to do that is? Any ideas?
Blind hiring, so you remove all names and personal pronouns from the resume.
Blind hiring, so you remove all names and pronouns from resumes. I think that works. That can work for screening, but not once you're in the room. Well, what we suggest is groups. You have groups manage the hiring process. And as you're going through the hiring process, you remember, who's the person who cares most about whether or not this job is filled? Is it the CTO trying to hire a senior developer? Is it the head of marketing trying to hire an SDR? Is it a developer trying to hire an ops dev engineer? If so, they're the person who's most biased. They want to fill that job, and they may be willing to let culture slide. So you have to remember, we all have biases. They're all different, and groups can change that dynamic. So we recommend that anyone on the team can say no, especially when you're at the 3, 4, 10 person stage. And it can be the most junior person in the room, because if they're seeing something, that means you're missing it. And I know what a lot of you are thinking. Oh, that means we're going to have to go slow. That means we won't be able to go as fast because it's going to take longer to hire. It's a lot longer if you go through the recruiting process, go through the hiring, go through integration, and then you fire them. And then you have to figure out where you went wrong, and then you have to start all over again. You can lose months doing that. Always use the references. So there are 2 types of references. One is the one that the candidate gives you, and 2 are the ones that you find on your own, the back channel. So a lot of people don't like to use candidate-given references. Of course they're going to say something good about the person. They gave me their name. The thing is, you can find out how to make it succeed. So ask them, say, I'm already in love with this person. I just want to make this work. What's the best way to manage them? How did you work best with them? How can I get them to love the company? And find out what's the way to optimize. You use back channel to try and find any smoking guns. And this means going through LinkedIn and finding common connections. This means sometimes going on Facebook. And this isn't phishing. This isn't trying to find like really nasty things. This is just trying to understand, did they really do the things they said they did? Oh, I see it says they were there for 2 years and they worked on X. Is that true? Or is it resume inflation? Yes? Oh, okay. Just an itchy nose. I'm curious why they didn't use you as a reference. Leave these open-ended questions. It doesn't have to be a long call, but it can really tell you a lot. You're saving yourself and the candidate a lot of time. Your job is as the guardian of your business. And the people you let in are going to affect your culture and determine whether or not you succeed in your goal. So move fast, but remember culture, yes? So the question was, should you do reference checks before making an offer or after making an offer? I think right before you give them an offer, you want to do the reference checks. But make sure you're very serious about them, because otherwise you're doing them a disservice. So just as, say, like an investor's like, oh, I want to invest in your company is very interesting. Thank you for the pitch deck. Let me talk to all of your customers. Then I want to do diligence on you. Then I want to do this. No. Get to the point where you're pretty certain and the reference checks are just kind of that last stop, because otherwise those reference checks are the references will get worn out. Just as your customers during an investment process will get worn out. And so you want to be respectful of their time, and honestly, it takes a lot of your time. Any other questions while we're paused? Yep. Okay. So another way to handle this is to email founders from previous startups. If you write into a founder and say, hey, I'm interviewing this person, I just wanted to know how they were. I'm the founder of this company, XYZ, we're about this big. Would you mind telling me about it? There's honor among thieves. They will get back to you, they'll be very open, and they'll let you know how to make it succeed and what they think. Now, obviously, you don't do this to any company that they're currently at. You need to be very respectful that way. And you need to, it's always best to present a good face. I am going to hire this person. Let me just ask some questions so that they don't feel like they're betraying their person while you're trying to make sure that you're guarding your company. All right. Prioritize fit. So when you're very early, functional skills are commodities. You want to make sure that you have someone who can do all the things you do, but if someone's just 5% better but has a bad culture fit, take the person who's just 55% worse but a 50% culture fit. They will stay longer, your team will be happier. This doesn't mean hire the nice dummy, but at this stage, when you're all in one room together, this is more important. Yes?
When you talk about fit, you talk about the values of the company?
I talk about, are they in love with your business? Are they aligned with your vision? Do they honor your core values? And could you see them hiring people that will also align with your vision and core values? Because those people who are there around the table at the very beginning, they're the ones who make all the hires later on. They have been around the longest. They know where all the bodies are buried. Number 9, always give a realistic preview. So when you're bringing a candidate in, let them know. We've got 6 months of runway. I work 11 hours a day. I see that tapering off after I raise my Series A. I have product built, but I'm still doing customer discovery. I don't quite have product market fit yet. I am getting all my sales through founder hustle. My next big hire after you is X, Y, and Z. You want to make sure that they know what's happening. They're going to see it the moment they walk in the door. Short-term attrition happens because of an expectation gap. When people show up and 2 weeks later, they realize this is not the role that I wanted. This is not the role I was sold. This is not the company at the stage that I wanted. This product is buggier than I thought. The investors are not coming back in, and they will move on. Companies need people, and people generally stay if they love the company. People, long-term attrition, people leave due to managers. But that's a whole other topic, and I think the previous speaker kind of covered a lot of that. So, one thing to watch out for are escape artists. So these are people who come along and great skills, great culture. They seem to love what you're doing. But in the end, you are just a method of getting away from the startup they're in, or their reason or method for getting out of Google. And so there are 2 ways to watch for an escape artist. One is, do they use a lot of they? Is there a lot of complaining about the previous company? They didn't do this. They didn't do that. They abandoned this promise. If so, they're moving away. You can also look to see how many short stops they had. Do they have a lot of stints where they were there for under a year? Do they have multiple? Is it because the startup died? Quite possibly. Or is it because the grass is always greener somewhere else? And you want to watch for that, because escape artists, as much as you love them, you won't hold them for a minute. And they'll move on as soon as they find something new. What you want to do is find someone who has real enthusiasm, who's floating off the ground to actually meet and work with you. These are really hard people to find, but when you find them, grab them and pull them into the company. Second to last rule. Has anybody read this article? So it's an article written by Mark Manson. He's a blogger turned, blogger. And this is the article that basically broke him big. And the idea is that in a romantic relationship, if you are dating someone, it's either a fuck yes, yes all the way, yes, I'm in love with this person, yes, this is great, yes, this is awesome, I want to live my life with them, or it's a no. Anything else, there's no maybes. Fuck yes or no. I started doing better in my dating life once I started thinking this way. My fiance also. Find a co-founder. No. So the same thing is true with early stage employees. Is this person going to live my values, core values, mission, vision? I don't want to go through everything, but make sure they're a fuck yes. Otherwise, 6 months later, you'll regret it. That smart person who's rude, that person sucks to run into in the break room. That's not who you want. Final rule is always be closing. This is a competitive market. You're going to be going through this process. You need to keep building pipeline until you're relatively sure that you have the candidate. So when would you stop building pipeline? You know, you've got screening, profiles, interviews, offer letters, first day of work. What's the stage where you stop trying to fill this role? After 90, that's very aggressive or very, very, very paranoid. I don't think you should throw out the pipeline, but maybe you could step back. When do you think that they're yours? Is it when they sign the offer letter? Is it when they show up the first day of work? Well, what we tell our founders is it's when they give notice. It's when they give notice and they haven't taken the counteroffer is when they're yours. They're really yours maybe after 90 days, but even then. So now we're going to go from the 12 rules to the process of how do you handle hiring and all this stuff. How's this feeling for everybody? Does this all make sense? Are my 12 rules like idiotic? They useful? The question was, do you apply the same rules to partners, consultants, agencies that you work with? And the answer is some of them. And with agencies, honestly, they're in seller's mode, so you don't have to move as fast. It's not as important that their cultures align. It's you can argue more based on comp and equity. One thought with working with any agency, consultant, or someone else is make sure there's someone on your team who is an employee, is directly managing that relationship, because otherwise you won't get what you need out of it. And if you see something that's not working in terms of values or mission, then bring it up quickly and fast. And they will change their behavior because they need to be fed. And that is literally how consultants view all these things. But agencies, consultants are very powerful. I've seen lots of startups move forward very quickly. In fact, I'm working with a small startup Founder, self-funded, $300,000, built a prototype of a robot, just raised $1 million. That's not enough money to hire high-end roboticists. So he's brought on some agencies to build out like the next stage of the prototype so that he can actually do a proper roadshow. And then he hopes to raise $5 million with these prototypes. So he's been lining up potential hires. He's working very closely with strong mechanical engineering and design agencies. And he's got consultants that he can manage directly to get to this next level so that he can raise, so that he can actually go build the team he needs. We will see if it's successful. But so far, his VCs are bought in, they understand, and they see the need to use the dollars that way. Dollars are runway. And you're using your runway to try and achieve a goal. All right. So we just went through the steps to hiring. Now we're going to figure out what we need. Our goals. Trying to get a product launch. We're going to market for the first time. We build a financial model to figure out what our burn is and what resources we can use to achieve that goal. From that, we develop a hiring plan so that we can know what we can afford. And that may help us determine if we hire an employee, if we hire someone junior who lives in the Midwest, or if we can hire a high-class consultant or someone really expensive. We write those job descriptions so that we get aligned and so we have an ad. We develop a sourcing plan. That's how we find the candidates and make the hiring happen. And I'm about to cover that. And then we calibrate. So as you hire one employee, you then calibrate all the other job descriptions to see if something got covered. Maybe suddenly you hired a senior engineer who also does DevOps. And that person can probably handle the DevOps role for the next 6 months. Great. You've just freed up a person for marketing. Or you've freed up a junior developer to build an iOS app. And you don't need to hire a consultant. So sourcing. Easiest one is direct. This is where you do it yourself. This is where you post to Facebook, AngelList, LinkedIn, Twitter, and you go through the candidates. Pros, it's cheap, it's free. Cons, low candidate quality, iffy pipeline. You have to work really hard. You're doing all the work, which at an early stage might make a lot of sense. If you happen to be kind of like a celebrity or very well connected, then this can work really well for you. But that's not everyone. Second is contingent. So contingent is when you hire a firm to go out and look for you. And this is generally, this firm will get 30 cents on the dollar of that first salary. This is generally bottom of the barrel kind of work. It is not necessarily the best way of actually finding candidates. Pros, they do the work. Maybe they'll find a good candidate. Not crazy expensive. Cons, as soon as they find out that you're hard to hire for, they'll stop working because they're working on contingency. They don't get paid if they can't make the hire, so if you start costing them a lot of money in terms of hours, they'll drop you. And they'll also stop working the moment they've given you what they think is enough candidates. Hybrid. This is probably what a lot of you, after direct, will really consider. And that's to hire someone, bring them in-house, and have them basically run direct. They're going out and looking on LinkedIn. They're going out and finding who candidates might be. They're handling the screening. They're running as an in-house recruiter. And you pay them hourly with a small bonus. Final is retained. Retained is where you hire like a really good firm like Michael Spencer or Riviera, Korn Ferry. This is when you're hiring that hire that will help you get the next round. So say you've raised a couple $1 million, and now you have to move from founder hustle to get sales done to a true VP of sales. You need an operation. For that, you need a proper VP of sales. So you go to one of these firms, and you say, I need this person. This is the resume I want. This is the title I want. $75,000. But if that $75,000 will help you get to a couple million ARR and help you get to your next round, then it's made all the difference. So your runway will drive your choice. Where you are in your life cycle will drive your choice. And again, never forget that you can rent people to solve problems. Consultants live for this kind of stuff. And also think about, if you raise enough money for $1 million for 1 year, and you need 2 developers to hire to build that product, and it's going to take them a year to build that product, how long do you think you'll actually have those developers in the door? Well, it'll probably take you at least 3 months to hire one of them, and then another month or 2 to hire the second one. So you really only have them for about 6 months, maybe 9 months before you're out raising again, before you need to have the product done. It's a time like that when a consultant might make more sense, or when you need to raise more money, if that's a possibility. So, time for process. So, when you're interviewing, I think we've driven into this enough, culture. You want to have a specific interview where you just get to know the person, find out what their values are, find out what appeals to them about the job, why were these other jobs. Functional. What did you do? And here, this can be like a phone screen, perhaps. You just want to hear the words that they're saying, make sure they understand what the role is, that they're using the right vocabulary. And so this can still be kind of an early part of the interview process, but make sure they know the tools, they're aware of them. Then you get into the technical interview. And this is where you actually make sure they can do the work. And there's a lot written online for each different role. If it's a technical person, you could have them do a quiz. Actually, a company that I work with, they give after they've passed the culture interview and a phone screen, they give them a test. And they have a week to do it. So it's no stress. They're told not to cheat, as in like don't look up the answer, but just act like a developer and get this done. We'll know if you cheated. And the candidates have really responded very well, and they get to know whether or not like this candidate is good. And then they bring them in for an on-person, for a one-day screen. But here is where you also want to find out what did they do at their last job, and get really specific. So if it's a marketer, what did you do? Oh, I grew pipeline. How did you do that? Oh, I started a campaign. Oh, you want more? What does that mean? Oh, I spun up MailChimp. I implemented a drip campaign. I then started I did some A/B testing on our links. I hired a content marketer, found that worked out better, and I was able to open our click-through rate by 5%. Great. Now we know you actually did something. You can at least talk the talk. References we already discussed. Negotiation. Negotiations we'll cover that a little bit later, but one thing that we always one is always use data. So you can find a lot of comps. There are startups or like research agencies that will share salary data if you share your salary data. And then Glassdoor, AngelList all have comps in them. And the other thing is to offer a choice. So when you have someone coming in, you can ask them, do you care more about the cash or the equity? I can't just make up my mind right here, right now. I've got board members, I've got teammates, got a lot of constraints. But if you tell me what you prefer, I can try and craft the offer that way. And like a really smooth move is to actually present 2 different offers and let them choose. And that gives them the feeling of choice and buy-in on that you're crafting the offer together, and it shows that you care about what they want. And close. Bring them in. Don't stop pipeline until they're 90 days, or maybe it's 99 years after they've been with the company for a while. So we covered this a little bit, but the job importance drives strategy. So if it's a VP of sales, maybe you go return search. If it is a person to manage your office, you can probably do that direct. If it's another developer, go to your developers first. Look at companies that are already doing what you're doing. Say, hey, would you like to try and make a better version of the product you've been working on for 3 years for more equity? Use data to inform job offers. We just covered that. So a thing that a lot of startups don't think about is how much work this is. If you're under 10 people and you have to hire 3 or 4 people, this is another full-time job. This is why companies hire recruiters at around 15, 20, why they bring in a part-time recruiter to manage this. The interview burden, it can be insane. It pulls developers out. It's another reason to do take-home tests. When I was at Microsoft, and I was there back a while ago, I was doing 2 or 3 interviews a week. Like, it is a lot of work, and most of them are not worth the time, and so people start to get begrudging about it. So don't just think you're magically going to get the candidates. Think of this as a whole other job and process that you're running. So first, let's assume you're going direct. You have to gather your profiles. You have to figure out what are all of the titles you're looking for, what are the companies you're looking for, and then go direct towards them and find the 70 candidates that it could possibly be. Screen those down to the candidates that you're interested in. The 6, 7, or 8 that you actually want to meet with and talk to. Then you have those phone screens, which is going to take a half hour, 45 minutes, plus notes. Then you have the on-site interviews. Any candidate that comes in is basically going to be a day, and everyone is going to be focused on that during the day. A lot less work will be done. Then you have your reference checks, which can take hours for any candidate, though hopefully fewer. And then you have your close. So there are some hacks, though, to generating profiles. Once you figure out the companies that you're looking for, the sector, and the job titles, you can hire an Upworker or someone from Odetta to go through LinkedIn, AngelList, and find them. And you can have them generate this as a spreadsheet with all the information right there, and you can get their email address. Because email addresses are pretty easy. Like, you don't want to use LinkedIn. You want to make this personal. You don't want to send, say you have a candidate that looks really interesting, you don't want to just send them a note in LinkedIn alongside every other salesperson trying to sell you a car machine, or just a Calendly link that says, hi, I'm CEO of X. Let's talk. Here's a Calendly link. If they don't know you, and they're being courted by 5 other companies, they're not gonna respond. Instead, something like this. I'm the co-founder of X. We are growing really fast. I am looking for someone just like you. I think this could be a great opportunity for both of us. Do you have the time to get together? And then work yourself around their schedule. And at the early stage, that's the CEO or some other, or a high-profile co-founder. When I was being courted by a VC firm a couple of years ago, and I would walk out of meeting with the managing director, and his admin would always ask me, just stick around for a second. Blah, blah, blah has cleared his calendar for tomorrow. Are you available for dinner? And that is how they ended up recruiting me in. That kind of personal attention, knowing that you're cared for, knowing that they want to spend more time, that you want to spend more time with them, that you care about them, that makes all the difference. And it's a good reflection on your values. So just some final reminders. Use an ATS. Does anybody know what this is? Applicant Tracking System. Super old SaaS technology, nothing fancy. It's kind of like a CRM, except it's catered towards interviewing. And so it'll allow multiple of you to share notes. It'll help you track candidates coming in. It'll help you review the data for what your close is like as you're going forward. Where are you losing people? What interview step are you failing at? And it also usually helps you figure out, or helps you get the job description out. Remember that ad we already wrote? This will use that to get the job out. Second is start with poaching. Look at your nearest competitors, who you're going after, and go after those people. I already referenced this, but would you like to build a better version of what you've been working on for 3 years? Would you like to sell a better version of what you've been selling for the past 5 years? We're a hungry startup. We've got equity. We have a dogs can come to work policy. You can help create this company. Come join us. When you are interviewing someone, pick a fight. The best indicator of what your relationship is going to look like with one of these candidates, with a new employee, is whether or not they can take feedback. Startup life is very difficult. It is high stress. It is a boiler room at times. And you need to make sure they can handle it. It's not that people who are fragile aren't good people. It's maybe they aren't made for startup life. You want to look for people who are anti-fragile, to borrow a phrase. And make sure that they'll be able to handle the stresses that are going to be coming. Talked about offering choices up for equity-based or equity forward versus cash forward. And that's it. We've got about 16 minutes. If anyone wants to chat more or questions, or if you just want to enjoy the sun. Yeah.
For the first hires of like this, the ones who will be hiring after me, what do you think about giving them options, not just a salary?
For a tech startup?
Yes. Do you have them longer with us, actually?
Yeah. Most tech startups that are VC-backed provide equity to their early employees. And when you are, say the co-founders are, say there's 3 co-founders, you're splitting it up equally, you reserve 10% for a friends and family round, you'll earmark 10 to 20% as an option pool. And those options are specifically designated to key hires. So your first engineer, between 1% and 3%. Your CTO, if they're not on the founding team, which would be surprising, but happens, 5 to 8%. You need to, while you're doing your hiring plan, you need to forecast your option pool being used up for those different positions. And that's part of that calibration process. Oh, wow, that BD person cost a lot. I'm going to have to offer less equity. Now, as things go on, like say you use up your option pool, your next, like say you hit your Series A and you have 5% left in your option pool, let's say. And you know that with this funding, you're going to ramp your burn up from 40,000 or 50,000 to say 200,000 a month. You are also going to be giving out a lot of options, and you're going to be hiring expensive people. Now, you'll be able to give that dev that in the first round got 1 to 3%, maybe a quarter point, maybe 10 basis points, so 0.1%. But that VP of sales is still 2 to 3% if you hire him at that stage. And so your investors will make you do an option pool before they invest. And they'll at minimum make sure that the option pool extends during your runway, but they'll try to make it so it extends into the next round, because they want you, everybody gets diluted when you do an option pool. So all those previous investors, the friends and family from the first round, they're now down at 8% because you've just issued 20% new shares. And you're now diluted. The book Venture Deals by Brad Feld does a great job of covering a lot of this. Mark Suster, Brad Feld's blogs both cover this. I'm not finished reading it yet, but Scott Cooper's book, Secrets of Sand Hill Road, just came out like 2 weeks ago. I bet it covers this as well. Just look up option pool. And there are a number of tools that you can use to forecast all of this. And a company called called LTSE, Long-Term Stock Exchange, that Eric Ries, who's of Lean Startup fame, this is his new company. They've developed about 8 new tools for early stage startups. So one is called captable.io, and that's for managing your cap table and for doing like what ifs around like, oh, if I do an option pool, what does it look like? If I do this option pool, what does it look like? And also sharing it out to your investors. They have hiringplan.io, which shows it can help you balance your forecast versus your equity versus your financials as you're hiring. And I forget the other tools, but there's some really like very, very valuable tools for early stage startups in there. Yep.
Think back on that. There's certain vesting schedules that you would recommend or you've seen standard when it comes to those employee shares?
So the question was around vesting schedules. So kind of standard issue is, I'm blanking on, basically 4-year vesting monthly, 1-year cliff. So you're vesting that first year, but you don't actually get any of the shares until you hit your cliff. And you can have that's a negotiating point. Basically means, you don't want dead weight on your cap table. And so if you're afraid this person is an escape artist, you don't want them to get options that be dead weight on your cap table just for 6 months of work. Now, a thing that's still kind of up in the air is when does the person have to exercise? Generally, employees do not have to exercise until they leave the company. And then sometimes they do. Pinterest and a couple of other like more employee-friendly companies have set it as a 10-year cycle for that, which means employees are more likely to leave because they can go after their 4-year vest is done because they don't have to exercise right then. At the same time, there are plenty of Pinterest employees that stayed and they had grant refreshes, even though they had the 10 years. And they just actually, it was part of their culture. They felt free. They enjoyed working there. And so it's really kind of a question. Uber, you had to exercise when you left. It really depends on the culture there. And CapTable, one of the tools they have there has a great, I'm blanking on the name of it. Yep.
Okay. Which one of these steps would apply for hiring interns?
For hiring interns? Slightly, so the question is, which one of these steps hire for interns? Okay, my thoughts on interns, I would do a mix of direct and just calling, and hybrid, call a bunch of colleges and find people. Never give them mission critical work. It's gonna cost someone to manage it. Values are kind of aligned, but honestly, if they're fresh out of college, they're like Play-Doh. They don't have enough work history, anything. But you could end up finding a great engineer that you can hire immediately if you treat them really well. So if you're an early stage person, unless you have like a meaty project that's outside of kind of the standard part, I would not do it. It's a waste of time. It's a distraction. If there is some key thing where you can't afford it right now and it's its own piece of work, go for it. They're gone in 3 months. And actually that robotics startup I referenced, he found a grad student to do all the materials work. It's basically an internship. But who knows, maybe in 2 years when he finishes at Berkeley, he'll join. Yep.
What's your opinion on milestone-based vesting?
What's my opinion on milestone-based investing? Vesting. It's an interesting idea. I honestly haven't seen it enacted, so this is actually kind of the first time that I've really heard of that. I've seen it more on M&A as earnout, and that doesn't always work out because suddenly your milestones are determined by the person who is holding the stock. I've seen it done as stock grants as rewards, but usually employees want to know what they're getting as they come in. Sorry. All right. You, I think, or you're just scratching. Okay, you.
Lots of your tips seems to be very for face-to-face hire. Any tips on more remote hire through internet and stuff like that?
I think all of these things can be done with video calls. But I would make it video and make sure it's explicit. Use Zoom so that it actually works. Don't use Hangout. Yeah, I don't know. I think all of these things can be done that way, especially if you're a remote organization or you only have money to fly out so many candidates for in-person, but you want to do a lot of this stuff. And this is where the take-home quiz can really matter quite a bit. All right. Yes.
Are there any online platforms which companies use to do a background check or something on candidates?
Are there any online platforms where companies can do background candidates? Google. You can do a criminal check. And otherwise, LinkedIn. There's nothing that's really like scooping up the dirt on Brady Forrest to find out if he'd be a good product manager. Yet. Sure. All right. Any other questions, comments, feedback? All right. Thank you very much for coming out.